Hi, Dr. Mike Denninger here to share with you a 90-minute presentation introducing you to multi-channel eye movement integration, or MEMI as we call it for short. So in the process of going through this presentation, I'm going to talk about the theory, the presuppositions that undergird MEMI, and also the procedures and certain techniques that are used in the therapy. There will be several videos shown. It's actually a snapshot or a bunch of snippets that are taken from the 2-day MEMI certification training that you can take either online through Arizona Trauma Institute or take live at various locations in the US and in places like Singapore. So enjoy the show and look forward to you becoming more involved with MEMI. So like I said, this is a roughly a 90-minute presentation. I'm going to talk very fast so we can get through a lot of material. And at the end, you should have a good idea about how MEMI works and whether you might be interested in taking the practitioner training. So a lot of people ask me, why is MEMI called a multi-channel approach? Well, it's called that for a good number of reasons, and one is because it's very different from other eye movement therapies. It's multi-channel first because it is limbic. There is recent research from about the last 5 years that indicates that eye movements, simple bilateral eye movements, that when they are guided in a threat environment, will reduce the reactivity of the amygdala when it comes to distressing or traumatic memories. It's somatic because MEMI does focus on the physical and the emotional and the tactile reactions that people have to traumatic experiences. And we also test and retest those areas of reaction typically with MEMI. It's neurological because we believe that eye movements are organized and systematic. If my eye movements go to one location or another, that is an indication of the kind of processing that is happening in the brain. It's linguistic because unlike other eye movement therapies, we use verbal strategic prompts when we are doing the eye movements as an added interrupt to a traumatic experience's structure. It's sensory because we primarily focus on the visual image related to a traumatic experience. It could also be auditory, although sounds are less likely to be a part of a recalled traumatic experience. It's organic because we depend on the body's neurological, cognitive, sensory, and kinesthetic systems to heal traumatic experiences. It's not cognitive. We don't focus a lot on cognitions or seeking to change the cognitions related to an experience because irrational cognitions tend to hold on to or perpetuate physical and emotional reactions. We don't believe that. It's systemic because MEMI engages all of the systems that are related to a traumatic experience: limbic, neurological, somatic, linguistic. Systemic because we believe that everything that a person does or says or thinks or feels is organized. But to start off with, one of the most important things in MEMI is to make sure that we are completely at ease with ourselves, that we are self-regulated, calm, and collected, so that clients feel safe enough to be at ease with us. In the training, I will take some time myself first to calm myself, do some breathing or other types of techniques, some body movements that will allow me to self-regulate, and then do some exercises to help the audience regulate themselves so we can co-regulate in the same way that you as a therapist would want to co-regulate with your clients before you begin a MEMI session. Now, MEMI is based on neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. NLP was founded by Richard Bandler and John Grinder in the late 60s, early 70s. It's both a psychological approach and a therapeutic methodology, and it's distilled or gleaned from the collective works of Milton Erickson, a medical hypnotist, Virginia Satir, family systems therapy, and Fritz Perls, the Gestalt therapist. Bandler and Grinder, after studying the works of Erickson, Satir, and Perls, gleaned from what they saw in the works of those three certain themes that were woven through all of the techniques that these individuals used. They created what are called presuppositions. Presuppositions are propositions or assertions that are thought to be true even in the absence of scientific data. And presuppositions guided the development of all NLP models and strategies. Multi-channel eye movement integration is an expansion of NLP's original eye movement integration technique. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Robert Dilts, who was a student of Bandler and Grinder, did some research around eye movements that became the basis for the development of eye movement integration and probably for EMDR as well. I've done a lot of research on that topic, and I believe that EMDR is actually NLP based, or it owes a lot to NLP in its structure and procedures. Dilts wrote this in a book that he wrote in 1980. Because all behavior, microscopic or macroscopic, is a transform of internal neurological processes, it will carry information about those processes. Now, to break that down into simple terms, I'll give you an example. If my eyes go up to the left, that is an indication that I am retrieving past visual information. So if I'm thinking about a baseball game that I went to a couple of days ago and some grand slam that some guy hit out of the stadium, my eyes will go up to the left to retrieve that. It's a transform. The eye movement up to the left is a transform, meaning that when I go up to the left with my eyes, I can infer from that that I'm recalling some past visual information. I could even ask my client, what did you just see? Or what did you just get a picture of? Right? MEMI and NLP are based on this idea. Because eye movements, because our sensory and kinesthetic systems are organized and systematic, we can study and we can infer certain things happening inside neurologically at the same time based on those movements. So Robert Dilts did a research study in 1977. And he came up with this model with the help of Bandler and Grinder. Actually, this model was, the positions in this model that you see were created by Bandler and Grinder from their study before Dilts did his research study with subjects. Dilts placed electrodes on the heads of individuals, and he watched their eye movements after he asked them specific questions that would cause them to retrieve types of information. So he might have asked them for auditory future, because auditory future is a sound that you've never heard before, or a sound that you have to construct because you've never heard it before. For example, if you ask a client, I want you to think about listening to Donald Trump sing the Star-Spangled Banner. Because you've never heard that before, I don't think, your eyes would likely go to the right if you're right-handed and your eye movements are normally organized. If I ask you to tell me about your last birthday, who was there, and did you have a cake and things like that, your eyes would go up to the left because that is a memory that you have stored, a visual memory that you're accessing from the past. If I ask you to imagine a pink dinosaur with yellow polka dots, your eyes would go up to the right because you've never seen that before, and you have to construct an image of it. So these were the accessing positions that Dilts came up with in his study. Now, there is one research study that confirms that the auditory and the visual accessing positions, both future and past, are valid. It was correlated for all four of these positions at p = 0.001 level. So there's a very strong correlation based on this one study between the eye movements and the locations as they are labeled here in the model. So how does that affect MEMI and what we're doing? So eye movement integration was created by Steve and Connie Ray Andreas in 1989, and they did it in reaction to Shapiro's introduction of EMDR that same year. Now, as I said before, EMDR is most likely borrowed models from NLP for its construction. Francine Shapiro maintained that she got this idea while walking in a park, and suddenly her eyes started moving, and so on and so on. You will read that all over the place. My research tells me that the picture is much more complicated than that. Shapiro actually worked in John Grinder's NLP office. She got NLP training. She was exposed to the eye movement model, and so on and so on. But that's a story for another day. So eye movement integration was created by these two in 1989, and they started teaching it in 1990. The only problem with eye movement integration was that it did not have any written procedures. It was only taught in live seminars of a day or two. I learned eye movement integration in 2002 and used it for several years, thinking it was really remarkable, very different from EMDR, much faster, and the results are much more durable. So that in 2008, I started to write procedures of my own. And after many, many years, multi-channel eye movement integration, the direct descendant of eye movement integration, was published in 2021 and is a soup to nuts guide to everything that you need to know about multi-channel eye movement integration. Training in it is offered in live seminars, and also in webinars that are on demand through the Arizona Trauma Institute at aztrauma.org. So there's the book. It's available on Amazon. The presuppositions that support MEMI are 5 in nature. They come directly from NLP, and they're my take on the presuppositions that support MEMI. The first is human experience is organized and systematic. In other words, everything that we do, say, think, or feel is organized and systematic, including our neurological systems, our sensory systems, and our feeling reactions to any type of event. If I eat a slice of pizza, I tend to eat it the same way every time. If I tie my shoes, I tie them the same way every time. When folks apply lipstick, they tend to do it the same way. When we shave our stubble, we tend to do it the same way. And gadgets come with instructions, books come with chapters and table of contents and indices. Everything is organized and systematic. Second, human experience has a structure. And the structure in MEMI, adapted from NLP, has 4 elements: context, the who, what, when, and where, thoughts, sensory information, and feelings. And we're going to delve into that a little bit deeper in a minute. Human experience is stored and retrieved using sensory data. So when I think about an experience of mine, I get an image of it. It might be near or far away. It has certain characteristics that we take advantage of in MEMI. We test them and retest them after eye movement sets, and I will explain that. Human experience being stored and systematic makes our experiences also durable. They tend to repeat over and over again the same way unless something interrupts that experience. When patterns are interrupted, experience reorganizes. So if I ask you to think about an image related to an experience and your eyes tend to go there to get that information, while at the same time I ask you to follow my finger as I move it in different locations across your visual field, that is causing your eyes to move in a different direction. It's a pattern interruption, and it causes your memory to disorganize. So when patterns are interrupted, experience reorganizes. And when experience reorganizes, it tends to be beneficial. It's not always beneficial, but it tends to be that way. And this is what we see in MEMI and actually all of the eye movement therapies. I think if you look at all of the eye movement therapies, every one of them uses pattern interruptions by asking the eyes to go in a different direction than they would normally go when processing a particular event. So here's the theoretical model for MEMI, which is much different from EMDR's adaptive information processing model, which tends to be very complex and difficult to understand. Context, the who, what, when, and where of an event. The context is what traditional trauma therapy spend a lot of time on, like cognitive processing therapy, prolonged exposure, cognitive behavioral therapy for trauma. They tend to ask clients to repeat out loud the story of the problem state or the story of the trauma. In MEMI, actually, we almost never do that. Clients are not required to repeat their trauma story ever. And yet we can desensitize the reactions to a traumatic experience. Thoughts, cognitions. In MEMI, we don't think that thoughts are irrational, although they may be sometimes irrational. We simply ask a client, okay, when you think about that experience, what is your thought? And they might respond, oh, it's my fault, or I should have done something to stop it, or why would somebody do something like that? We simply write it down. We don't probe about whether the thought is rational or not, whether they want to change it or not, like you would in cognitive therapies. Sensory information, primarily visual images. And I've determined that the 3 components, the 3 elements that cause traumatic memories to persist for so long, that are most virulent in keeping traumatic memories moving, are the visual images, the emotional feelings, and the physical feelings, or what we call the visceral feelings. Feelings, physical feelings, emotional feelings, and tactile feelings. And that is the structure that we test and retest when we're doing MEMI. So the MEMI hypothesis is this: guiding a subject's eyes to all locations in their visual field, all over, not just back and forth like in EMDR or in accelerated resolution therapy, while they think about a traumatic experience and listen to verbal prompts spoken by the therapist, will reduce amygdala activations and alter a traumatic memory structure in beneficial ways. So here are the steps in the MEMI protocol. 10 of them very simple, and some of them repeat over and over again. Establish rapport, like at the beginning of the presentation here. All of you have training in establishing rapport. It's something that counselors do a lot. We add to this co-regulation. We want therapists to be regulated and centered themselves before they work with a client. And we want therapists to be able to recognize when clients are dysregulated and help them return to a regulated state. So the two, the therapist and the client, can work in tandem in co-regulation of emotions. Secure agreement to change. If a client has a reason why they should not change, they will not change, and MEMI will not change them. I can give you many examples, but when you take the training, you will see how important and how helpful this particular step is. We pre-test the elements of the structure. We go through, what are your thoughts? The visual image. Is it in color, black and white? Is it still photo, or is it a movie? Is it near or far away? Is it fuzzy or clear? We pre-test all the elements of the structure, the visual, the emotional, the physical feelings, and that becomes the baseline before we start the eye movements. We anchor a resource state. Now, anchoring a resource state in MEMI is an NLP technique. A resource state is a past experience that the client has had that's a positive experience. And it's the opposite of the problem that we're trying to address. So if there was a traumatic experience and the client says that traumatic experience was frightening. Okay, we ask the client, can you give me an opposite word to frightening? What would be the total opposite of frightening? And the client might say, powerful. Powerful. Well, of course. And then we ask the client, I want you to think about one experience in your past when you were very powerful, a time when you were at the top of your game. And then once they've identified that, and they tell us a little bit about it, then we revivify it using hypnotic language. I want you to drift back in time. I want you to settle into that experience. And I want you to feel everything that you felt then. And then we build it up. And I want you to take it to the top. That's right. And then we drop an anchor word that solidifies that resource state in the client. That's right. Powerful. Powerful. Then we test to see if the anchor has worked. We take a break and then we say, now, if I were to say the word powerful, what happens? You would want the client to go, oh my God, yes, I can feel all those feelings again. That resource state becomes reciprocal inhibition to the problem state or the traumatic experience, and then we reinforce it throughout all of the steps that we go through. And remember, you're powerful. We raise up, we do the eye movements, and then we retest. Therapeutic dissociation is a quick but really helpful technique in MEMI, where we position the image of the experience in a different location. Other eye movement therapies have clients visualize the experience out in front of them. And that almost encourages them to feel like they're back in the experience and going through it all over again. We call that association into the traumatic experience, and we don't want that. So we use dissociation. We ask them to project an image of that experience out on a surface away from them. Could be a wall or a shade or a blind or something like that. And that is the past. You and the client stay here in the present. You'll always be watching that as an observer. You won't be a participant in the experience anymore. So therapeutic dissociation, along with anchoring a resource, provide two safety mechanisms that are unlike you would find in any other eye movement therapy. Then we conduct the eye movements. We do 4 eye movement sets. It goes very fast. It's unlike other eye movement therapies that might do 1 set and test, and then another set up to 12, 13, 14, 15 sets. We only do 4 sets because of the way MEMI is structured. And then we retest the structure elements. So we ask, what's your thought about that experience now? Tell me about the image. Is it the same or different? The physical feeling that you had that was very intense, what's it like now? So we're not talking about the content or the context of the experience. We're talking about those things, those symptoms that are around the experience that we have going on inside. Now, the I score is a particular score that we use in MEMI that's unlike other eye movement therapies. The I score is a score from 0 to 4, with 0 representing no intensity, 1 is mild intensity, 2 is moderate intensity, 3 is high intensity, and 4 is the highest intensity. We test sensory representations of the experience. So the visual, we pre-test and we ask, that visual image now is pretty intense, right? Yeah. What score would you give it? And the person says, oh, it's a 4, the highest intensity. Okay. That becomes part of our baseline. And the I score is taken on the visual imagery, the sounds, the physical feelings, and the emotional feelings. And we use a SUD score like other eye movement therapies. 0 to 10, with 0 represent how distressing the whole experience is, not just the sensory information or the feeling related information, but the whole experience. 10 is the most distressing, of course, and 0 is not distressing at all. Then we record the results on a MEMI worksheet. We have a 2-page worksheet, front and back, that will track and allow you to record all of the changes that occur as you do the 4 eye movement sets and retest after the sets have been done. And the last step is conduct a future rehearsal and do a self-appreciation exercise. So when we conduct a rehearsal, we are actually asking the person to imagine after they leave the session and they're out there in the world, there may be times when you will be triggered to think about this memory again. So you ask your client, I want you to imagine yourself in some future situation, maybe someplace where you would normally be triggered, like watching a movie or passing a certain location, and tell me what you think your reaction is going to be like. And what we're looking for is the client to say, I think I'm going to be okay because of the changes that we made here. I can imagine myself going through that experience and it not bothering me as much. That's the future rehearsal. And self-appreciation is just a moment that we take with our client to say, okay, I want you to take a minute to appreciate what you have accomplished today. I presented some opportunities for you, but all of the changes took place inside of you. So eyes opened or closed, just take a minute to appreciate what you've accomplished. And that is the 10-step protocol. Pretty simple, huh? So I'm going to show you 3 of the 5 basic eye movements. So just going to explain briefly, there are 5 basic eye movements. Those 5 are combined in different combinations to make up the 4 eye movement sets, okay? So we'll look at the basic eye movements, 3 of them first. I gave them names simply for people to be able to remember them. They don't have any other significance. So above the horizon is 10 to 20 back and forth sweeps like this. Similar to EMDR's bilateral saccades, but they're higher up because we want to pass over the visual past and the visual future accessing cues that are in the NLP eye movement model. So 10 to 20 repeats, we stop, and then we do a retest. Look out there now and tell me if it's the same or different. Oh, it's different. Person says it's different. How is it different? They might say, well, the image isn't as close, it's farther away, and I don't have that heaviness in my chest anymore. Okay, well, the image was a 4 in intensity. What score would you give it now? And that's how the retest occurs. Here is one of 2 triangles standing because it looks like it's standing on one of its legs. It's 9 revolutions. Clockwise first. And then reverses. Reversing the eye movements is a powerful metaphor for also reversing the symptoms that one experiences. And then reverse again. And that's basic eye movement 2. Another eye movement is one we call shrinking circles. And this is a little intricate, but it's really, really powerful. So we start at the center, and as we do this circle eye movement, we might say something like this. And now a circle encompassing everything, meaning your symptoms are also contained within that circle. And we're reversing it, reversing the symptoms. And it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, shrinking it down to the size of a pea. So you can see how the spoken prompts kind of fit into some of the eye movements there. So now we're going to embark on several videos. These are snippets that are taken from the 2-day training. It's of a session that lasted about 75 minutes with a complex trauma client. And you will see over time, just from a couple of views, how the therapy works, and also how this client was able to regulate after coming into the session with some very strong dissociative symptoms. So the first is step 5. You're going to get a view of introducing therapeutic dissociation, and you'll see how it works. So here we go. So the first thing we're going to do, and this is a little bit unusual for me, but I know how distressed you can get from talking with you. So it's really important for us to kind of maintain a separation from that experience that you had. And we're going to use something called therapeutic dissociation.
Okay.
Big word, right? What does it mean? It just means that that experience as we work together today is always going to be out there beyond the cameras and over there on the wall. You're going to be here in the present with me. Mm-hmm. That's in the past. Mm-hmm. Okay? You can be safe and secure here. You're already going there, I see.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Are you okay to continue?
Yes. Yes,
okay.
I am. It's over there. It's not here. We're here. We're right here. We're right here.
Right. So you see how therapeutic dissociation works. Now we're going to go through the pretest, and you'll see how I ask her questions without asking her to tell me the trauma story, and how we collect the data that we use as the baseline before we start the eye movements. I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to ask you to describe the problem. We're going to skip over that. Okay. You like that part?
I like that part a
lot. I enjoy your sense of humor. I could be a good friend to you. Okay, let's just talk about your thoughts when you think about that experience. What do you say inside yourself, or
What thoughts come up for you?
My fault.
It's my fault. A lot of us do that, don't we? Yep. And don't go there.
Okay.
You're with me. How did I know you were going there?
Should I start tearing up?
I wasn't even looking at you.
Oh, okay.
I could feel the vibe or something.
I see.
No. It's just that when we make those self-critical statements, it often brings up emotions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it really was your fault?
I think that it is more complex and there's much more elements to it than just simply blaming one person.
Okay. Yes. So that tells me that you know that it's more complex than that.
Yeah.
But we tend to be self-incriminating.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. So we're going to check in with you and see if the thoughts are the same as we go through this today.
Got it.
Okay? And there is an image, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Is there one central image?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't want you to go there and think about it. It's over there, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. And you are here in your chair. You are safe. Right, right. Good. The image, though, is it a movie? Still photo.
The wind is moving.
The wind is moving. Okay. In color or black and white?
Color.
And near or far away?
Near.
Near. Fuzzy or clear?
Clear.
Oh. And that's enough for that. So remember the I score?
Mm-hmm.
What score would you give the image? 0 is no
4.
one? Got it.
Sorry.
It's okay. We also apologize a lot, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a thing. Okay.
That's a thing, isn't it? Okay. There are sounds too, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the principal sound?
Thud.
Thud. Okay. Is it loud or soft?
Loud.
Is the sound close or far away?
Far away.
Far away. Is it a thud? Is it high pitch or low pitch?
Low.
Yeah, it sounds like it's low pitched. Just one?
Mm-hmm.
And score? I score?
4.
4. I thought so. Okay. And there are visceral feelings related to it, or physical feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
What physical sensations do you have when you think about it?
Like a pain in the chest, like a panic.
A panic
Yeah.
and pain.
Yeah.
Is it both?
Both.
Okay. And you are in your chair.
I'm safe.
I'm safe.
There's a butterfly.
What color was the butterfly?
There's the yellow and black ones.
Oh, the monarchs like?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think so. I'm
I
not quite
think
sure
so.
what they're called.
Oh, well, they're the most common one that I used to see. I don't know. Nowadays it might be different. The panic and pain, the I score for that?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. 4.
4. And emotional feelings?
4.
Horror, of course. And that's a 4 too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You're here with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So that's the worst of it.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. So we don't need to do any more of that stuff, right? So we've done a pretest, and I've already explained to you how that is out there, right?
Right.
And we're here.
We're right here.
Past, present, distance, far, we're close, right? Good. After I do some eye movements, we're going to start with a simple one, right? Like I explained before. I I'm going to ask you like 3 questions after each time we do the eye movements. The first is going to be, is it the same or different? I'll have you turn your head and look out there and then come right back and you'll tell me if it's the same or different. I won't ask you how. I will ask you how, but I won't ask you to explain in detail anything. And you'll say, okay, it's the same. And I'll say, if it's the same, okay, let's do the eye movements again. If it's different, I'll ask you, how is it different? And you'll say, well, it's this or it's that, okay? And then if it's different, I'll ask you, is it better or worse? And you will just tell me.
Okay.
Deep breath. That word, what's the magic word?
Safe.
Safe. Yeah, you're safe.
So here we are going into eye movement set 1. What you're going to see is the first set, the above the horizon eye movements, and then you're going to see a retest, very brief, but how the changes start to take place even with the first eye movement set.
Okay, so turn your chair just a little bit. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And when I put this pen up, that's your cue to put your eyes on the pen and then just follow it wherever it goes.
Okay.
While thinking about way over there. Okay? All right. Here we go.
Okay.
Good. Good so far. Safe in your chair. Very good. Very good. Good. This is a little bit like splitting your awareness. You know, you can watch this pen with your eyes and at the same time think about something that was in the past and far away. Good. Good so far. Very good. Okay, look at me. Good. You're back.
Yeah.
You're back. You did all right.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, you made it through. That's good. You drove yourself today.
I drove myself. Oh, you mean here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You drive yourself everywhere, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. I thought you meant like I was driving my own mind or whatnot, and I was like, oh, where am I going?
Yeah, that was a little bit lame. I'm sorry for the
No.
question.
No, it's okay.
I was just making conversation.
Okay, cool.
Okay? Yeah. We take a little break here. We call it breaking state, right? Because you were in one state. You were kind of inching over there, right?
Right.
And so I asked you a silly question just to,
So
you know, create confusion. It's like, he asked me what? He wants to know what? I drove myself. Of course I drove myself, right?
Right.
I want you to just check out there really quickly and tell me if it's the same or if it's different.
A little less.
A little less. Okay, look back at me. What's less?
The sense of urgency is a little less. Like the sense of, oh my God, you gotta do something, you gotta... Yeah.
Sense of urgency is a little bit less. Now, you didn't mention that before, but that's interesting. Sense of urgency that you gotta, before it was, you gotta do something, right?
Yeah.
And now it's a little bit less. Where do you feel that sense of urgency?
In the body?
Yeah.
Like right here.
Like right here.
Yeah.
Is it what type of?
It's like a fluttering.
A fluttering. Okay. And every time that you had that before, right? Would it be at a 4? Yeah. So if it's a little bit less, what is it now?
3.
3. Awesome, we're going in the right direction. What about this pain up here?
2.
It went from a 4 to a 2.
Yeah.
I'm liking this. Yeah, you too, I hope.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, good. And the horror?
It's 4 still.
4 still. Okay, all right.
So we are going to move on to set 2 now. But what I wanted to explain is that this is a complex trauma client. And when we did set 2, she began to dissociate, which is not unusual for a complex trauma client. And what I did was I began a sensory grounding technique with her to bring her back into regulation. Then we went ahead and we repeated set 2, and then we did a retest after that. So you're going to see all of that now.
So we're going to do this again. We're going to do some different eye movements,
Okay.
but something's happening. Good. And you are
Safe.
safe. Cool. Good. Anytime somebody takes a deep breath like that, it is a good sign.
Good. Okay.
It's a very good sign. Okay. So I'm going to put the pen up, and then we're going to start over again, okay?
Okay.
Same thing. That's right. Okay. Good. Now, we're going to do a triangle here. You're safe. You're safe in your chair. Okay. I'm going to stop here for a minute. Look at me. What's happening? Okay, I know. Okay. Okay. You're here. That's in the past, right?
Yeah. It's back there.
Oh, we got more.
Yeah, I don't know what I do with it. Oh, I found it. Okay.
Well, you can always have a fresh one.
Thank you. Okay. Here. Here.
Yeah. You're here. So we're going to take a little break here.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you to do something for me, because when we talked on FaceTime,
Uh-huh.
you told me that you kind of disappear sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, you told me today that that's your way of avoiding having to go there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes when we do that, we do it purposefully, right? And sometimes we do it just because, you know, the mind takes us to another place, right?
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to do a little exercise with you just to make sure. So I want you to take this into your hand first and tell me what it feels like.
Smooth.
Smooth? What shape is it?
Like a rhombus rectangle.
A rhombus rectangle. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it soft or rough?
It's soft.
Soft. Okay.
Pliable.
What about this?
Soft. Warm. Soft. It's still soft.
Soft. What shape is it?
Well, when it's folded, it's a little square.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have one more. What about this? Hard or soft?
Hard.
Mm-hmm. Shape?
Like triangles and little circles.
Okay.
And it's fun.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's flexible.
Yeah, you can do like a bunch of things to it.
Okay.
I like this one the most.
Mm-hmm. That got you to smile.
Yeah.
Good. So we want you to remain like this as much as you can.
Okay.
Okay? So if that happens again,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to ask you to look at me
Okay.
and just keep looking at me, and I will ask you to take a deep breath with me, like that.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
All right, good. All right. Good. Safe here in the present. And a triangle. And reversing it. Yeah? We can do that sometimes. And reversing it again. And you may find that your thoughts about this will change. Okay, look at me. When we do these eye movements, sometimes it kind of relaxes you too. It's just if you were to do it on your own, it would relax you some. Okay?
Yes.
Safe.
Safe.
You like relax?
Yeah.
Yeah. So look out there now and tell me what it's like now.
It's quieter.
It's quieter. You mean the thud is not as loud? Yeah, okay. What about the pain here?
The pain is it's a 2.
It's a 2. Okay. And the horror? Deep breath is great.
4.
Okay. Okay, look at me. Good. Got you right back. That's cool. So things are getting better, right?
Yeah.
But there's one thing that didn't get better. And so we're going to focus on that in the next round.
So what we're going to do next is we're going to go on to set 3. Now, what I need to explain is because this took 75 minutes, there were a couple of times when we had to stop and talk about things. And one of the things that happened with this client was that she did not think that she should change her reaction because, 1, she thought it was her fault, and 2, because it would interrupt her memory of this person. So we had to do some cognitive restructuring of that. Would it be better for you if you let go? What would this person want you to do or think in this kind of situation? Would they want you to recover or not, and so on? So in set 3, the first part of that, we had to stop and do some of that restructuring. And what you're going to see is a repeat of set 3 and then the test after set 3.
So let me get ready here. Eyes on the pen. Great. Great. And some of the same eye movements and another new one. Good. Very good. Yes, you're doing very good. And we're going to do that figure 8 again, right here in the center. That experience and everything to it. In the distant background, past. You're watching this pan in the foreground. And reversing everything. Now, You look better to me. Your complexion is coming back to normal, seems to me. Is that the way you feel? Yeah? Okay. So look out there and tell me what it's like now.
It's just a super unfortunate thing that happened.
So you see a very unfortunate thing that happened.
So what we're going to show you now is that was set 3. We actually did 4 sets all together, and everything, or pretty much everything, had changed by set 3. And when she said just now, what are your thoughts? When I asked her what her thoughts were, she said, it's just a very unfortunate thing that happened. I asked her if she remembered what her thoughts were before we started, and she said, no, I don't. And I reminded her, I said, your thought before we started was, it's my fault. And then she was saying, after the eye movements, it's just an unfortunate thing that happened. So there's a change in cognition without having to go through all the hoops that you would by doing, cognitive restructuring over and over and over again. So here's the future rehearsal. And this is when you give clients an opportunity to practice what they are going to, when they are triggered again after the eye movement session is complete.
So one of the first thing that we're going to do is something I call a future rehearsal. Okay, so you're going to go back to your life from today, right? And however, there's going to be some time in the future when thoughts about this will come up. Okay. So there may be situations in which you typically think about it, right? So I'd like for you to place yourself in a future time when you might think about that and tell me what you think it will be like.
All I can think about is buffalo wings.
Buffalo wings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like my comfort food recently.
Okay.
I feel like if in the future I were to think about it, I would go get buffalo wings.
Okay. Is that different from your usual MO?
No, I was going to get buffalo wings after this too.
Okay.
I don't know why I can't stop thinking about them, but they make me feel good.
Okay. So would you have the same reaction, no? Would you be escaping to get the buffalo wings?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I guess that was the warm, nice, beautiful, gooey feeling you get when you eat them. That kind of soothes the terror feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to, I think I would be. If I were in the future and, like, let's say we were holding his funeral, I feel like I'd be more composed.
Okay. All right. That's what I was getting at, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you had to do that, you would be more composed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Would you have thought that before you and I worked together today?
No. No. Not at all.
No. I want to point something out to you. Although your eyes are misty from all that we've done today, you just said that with a smile. And although I know there's still emotion going to be around there, you're much more integrated now than you were when we started. Do you think that's true?
Integrated back to the present, back to reality?
Not just that, but you're able to think about all that without collapsing like you did before. Look out there at it and tell me what it's like now.
I don't like that.
I don't like that.
Yeah. I don't like that. It's it does look more like a distant picture.
That's right. It does, and you're not crying.
Yeah.
And you didn't collapse. And you didn't disappear. That makes me emotional. You know, we will never forget tragedies. They'll always be in our mind. but you've learned how to think about it differently today.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to show you now, and that's the end of our video. So you see how she ended up at the end of the session. I will add that we were able to desensitize this memory. I never asked her what happened. I never found out what happened during the experience that she came to work with me on. I found out a month later, and for her privacy, I'm not going to explain what actually happened to her. But by skipping the context and not doing what you would have to do if you were doing a traditional trauma therapy, where you would have them repeat out loud what happened to them, or even talk about it in first person. Because when you talk about it in first person, when you ask them to say, well, I did this and then this happened to me and I did that, they are being forced to associate back into the experience in the first person, and more likely to experience stronger reactions than they would if you talk about just the feelings and the sensory information and the thoughts. So to give you a kind of a 30,000 feet view of MEMI with what I call the MEMI schema, we start with what is a problem state. And it's very important that we identify the problem state that is causing them the most distress before we begin. Like EMDR, we start at the top of the food chain, so to speak. We start with the most difficult memory. The only reason why we would not start with the most difficult memory is if it would cause too much dysregulation. So there are ways of working around that if that's the case. But generally speaking, because of the safety mechanisms, therapeutic dissociation, and the resource anchoring, we're able to work with the most difficult state without causing undue dysregulation in the client. So we start with the problem state, and there are several factors that go into making the change possible. One is the co-regulation. So the more that you are co-regulated with your client and able to maintain that interplay back and forth with eye contact, for example, you saw how much I used eye contact. That's a very helpful technique in trauma therapies. Just by having a person make eye contact with you and maintaining eye contact with you, it interrupts their connection to the visual memory, which is in the past here when we do MEMI, or the memory that they might just experience wherever they locate the memory in their visual field. So eye contact is important. The safety mechanisms, anchoring a resource, and therapeutic dissociation, and the repetition of those once they're established throughout the session. So you saw how much I said, don't go there now. That's in the past. You're here in the present. And also safe. Her anchor word was safe, because her word to describe the experience was horror. And she decided the opposite of that was safe. And we worked on an experience that she had when she was outside sitting in the grass. And for the first time had felt like she was more herself. Okay. We anchored that, and then throughout the session, I kept saying, and remember, you're safe, you're safe, you're safe. The agreement to change being very important. Although she said, yes, I want this change, she stumbled a few times throughout the session, and that's when I had to do some cognitive restructuring with her, asking her, what would that person want for you? Would it be better for you if you let go of this? Would you be more present in the world if you did? And when she finally got that idea and she said, yes, I want it, then we had the agreement to change. And then the eye movements became much more powerful. We worked with the structural elements. We didn't do anything related to context. On the worksheet, I just tend to cross that out when I don't touch on the context. The thoughts, the sensory information, and the feelings. And we pre-test them and we retest them. We do the eye movements, the 4 eye movement sets with verbal prompts, and we retest. We use an eye score, we use the SUD score, and we also use, when I'm working with a PTSD client, I use the PTSD checklist for DSM-5. And the therapist prompts. You saw me use some of the prompts. I was talking a lot while I was doing the eye movements in order to not only keep her engaged, to keep her thinking about the trauma at the same time as she's watching my fingers move, or the light that was moving, and encouraging linguistically some changes to occur internally. Ecology is a word that I spend a lot of time talking about in the training. Ecology has to do with problems that may not relate directly to the problem state or the traumatic experience, but they nevertheless interfere with the change process. So, for example, if a battered spouse calls the police, has the partner arrested, taken to jail, and comes for therapy because the spouse is very dysregulated, right? And they want to get over that experience. But they have in their mind that they're not going to prosecute. They're not going to follow through with prosecution. That's a problem. There's an ecological problem there, because that will interfere with them healing, because in the back of their mind, they're going to think it's going to happen again. Even though they say to themselves, well, I think they will not do the same thing again, or they have learned their lesson or something like that. If they're not committed to making the bigger change, which is to separate from the spouse, then that will interfere with desensitizing the memory of when they were battered. So all of those elements go into moving the client through this process and reaching that desired outcome, which is more regulation, being able to look at the imagery, not feel the physical effects, not feel the same level of emotion that they did when they first came in to see you. So let me talk a little bit about the differences between MEMI and EMDR, because I get this question all the time. And so I like to give people information about it before. So MEMI uses the structure of experience theoretical model, which you saw. EMDR, at first, when EMDR was created, way back when in '89, it didn't have a theoretical foundation, because Shapiro said that because she discovered this while walking in a park, and it was kind of serendipitous, you know, she just thought about a troubling experience and her eyes moved in a multisaccadic manner, and then the thought disappeared. I have trouble understanding that, and I think that that's a flaw in EMDR. But because she said that's the way she discovered it, there was no theory. So after several years of getting criticism, Shapiro introduces what was called the adaptive information processing theory. And that is a theory that psychodynamic problems that we have had in the past are influential into the present. And I'll see if I can explain this in a way that makes sense. So if I'm working with a current trauma, there is a string of other traumas that probably relate to it that go back. So there are networks of traumas, neurological networks of traumas. So when EMDR does processing, and then they do a question after they finish processing, they would say typically something like, what comes up for you now? And the person might say something that has nothing to do with the current problem. Oh, I think that I remembered this, or I remembered that. And then they would process what came up that was new from the past, believing that you really need to desensitize all of those problem states in the network before you can really desensitize the current problem. So the theories are quite different, as you can see. And that's how they are different. We use 4 eye movement sets. We have 5 basic eye movements, like I said, but 4 sets. EMDR uses primarily bilateral saccades at eye level, horizontal. If the horizontal saccades don't work, then they sometimes will go to diagonal saccades, usually from, I think it's the client's lower right to their upper left. That's why, and with the spoken prompts, MEMI tends to go much faster in terms of desensitizing memories than you do with EMDR's 2 bilateral saccades. My belief is that if you don't take advantage of the whole visual system, all of the sensory accessing positions in the model, then your desensitization mechanism is not going to be as complete or as strong. MEMI is a multisensory approach. It's a multi-channel approach. So we approach this as an organized whole. And although we might work with some of the parts, like if you desensitize the imagery, but the physical emotion is still very strong, then you would, when you go on to the next set of eye movements, you would give special emphasis or attention to the physical reactions that they have to the trauma. EMDR, although this is changing, has had the theory that bilateral stimulation is what is the working mechanism that results in the changes in EMDR. Bilateral stimulation refers to eye movements that go to the left and the right. When they go to the left, they're activating the right hemisphere of the brain. When they go to the right, they're activating the left hemisphere of the brain. And that has, for years, been thought to be the mechanism that achieves the changes. That's changing now with some recent scientific research, which I talk about in the MEMI training. In MEMI, we use the eye scale for feelings and sensations, and the SUD. EMDR does not have a similar scale for the individual sensory and kinesthetic reactions that we use in the form of the eye scale. We use spoken reframes and metaphors, as you saw. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, shrinking down to the size of a pea. And EMDR typically does not use strategic verbal prompts like that. MEMI does not use free association. EMDR does tend to use free association in the form of what comes up for you now, or what's happening now, okay? And lastly, MEMI does not focus on cognitions, and we do not believe that cognitions need to be addressed in order to deconstruct their irrationality. Cognitions change automatically, so that when my physical reactions to that memory desensitize, my cognitions will change automatically, just like the individual in the video said, it's my fault in the beginning, and at the end she said she was very calm, and she said, it's just an unfortunate thing that happened. That was because her sensory reactions and her kinesthetic reactions have been desensitized. And EMDR uses a validity of cognition scale, where they ask the client to start off with a negative self-assessment about that experience and give examples if necessary. And then they ask for a target cognition that they would like to have at the end of the session. And then they use a semantic differential score from 1 to 7, where they ask the client to say how close they are to the target or to the negative self-assessment. So those are the differences between MEMI and EMDR. There are others, I'm sure, but there are many similarities in terms of the structure of the 2 therapies, because I believe that EMDR used several models from NLP. So this brings us to the end here. Let me move this down here. So if you want to arrange a consultation, if you want to talk about trauma, or I don't do a lot of individual work anymore. My focus is primarily on training and writing. But if you want to contact me, there's my email address, drmikeLPC@comcast.net. If you should like to take a live training, I would suggest that you go to my website, which is here, denninger.com. You can also find it by going to multichannel eyemovementintegration.com, and all the information that's critical and some demonstration videos and some podcasts that I've done are on the website for you to get more information. There are two ways to learn MEMI. One is by taking on-demand webinars, and they are sponsored by Arizona Trauma Institute, or ATI, and their web address is aztrauma.org. You can take some online training classes there. There are training classes for deaf therapists. So let me just sign that. We have training classes for deaf therapists. Go to denninger.com. There are training classes for life coaches. So if you want to be certified as a life coach through the Arizona Trauma Institute, you can take an online course there. And there is also the traditional course for therapists who can hear, who are not deaf. There are 3 separate courses designed for life coaches, deaf therapists, and for hearing therapists. The book is available through Amazon, amazon.com. It's also available in Kindle and Nook versions. So if you would prefer to obtain and read the book that way, you can do that. That about wraps it up. I want to thank everybody for being with me today. We actually ended up with little time to spare. So if you have any questions, like I said, get in touch. In the meantime, please, 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 don't be afraid. Take the step. If you're one of those therapists or life coaches who now refers people because you just don't know what to do when people come in with active trauma, this is your way out. And we would love to help you. Thank you, and have a great day. Bye.